The breakfast table had become a war room. Chinmay had been quiet through the entire meal, suspiciously deliberately quiet, the kind of quiet that in the 6 months Elena had known him she had learned to treat the way experienced sailors treat calm water before a storm. He ate his rice. He drank his juice. He arranged his chopsticks with unnecessary precision. Chinmay noticed it too. His dark eyes moved briefly to Elena across the table. She gave the smallest shake of her head. Wait. Chinmay set his chopsticks down. I have been thinking, he announced. About what? Elena asked, in the careful tone of a woman who has learned to brace herself. About the family. He folded his small hands on the table the way he had seen his father do in meetings. It is too small. Chinmay set his coffee down slowly. Too small. Yes. Chinmay looked between them both with complete seriousness. I have a mother now. I have a father. That is good. I am satisfied with that part. A pause for effect. But I need a brother. And a sister. The kitchen was very quiet. Elena pressed her lips together very carefully. Chinmay started. I have thought about it thoroughly, Chinmay continued undeterred. A brother so I have someone to teach things to. And a sister so I have someone to protect. He nodded once. I would like them at the same time. To save time. Elena looked at Chinmay. Chinmay looked at Elena. Something passed between them across the breakfast table. Something that started as shared disbelief and moved quickly through suppressed laughter and landed somewhere warm and complicated and full. You want twins, Chinmay said to his son. I want a brother and a sister, Chinmay corrected. Whether they come together or separately is up to you and Mom. I am not unreasonable. He picked his chopsticks back up. But together would be more efficient. Elena put her hand over her mouth. Chinmay looked at the ceiling briefly. We will take it under consideration, he said finally with the gravity of a man chairing a board meeting. Chinmay nodded, satisfied, and returned to his breakfast as if he had just approved a quarterly report. Welcome to Black Silk Stories, the home of Afro-Korean stories that hit different. Subscribe, drop a comment, and do not go anywhere. This is only the beginning. The proposal did not happen the way Elena might have written it if she had been writing it. There was no restaurant, no orchestra, no moment engineered for an audience. It happened on a Tuesday. Elena had just returned from 3 days in London, a restructuring meeting for her ENB European division that had gone longer than planned and landed her back in Seoul at 11 at night in a tailored burgundy power suit and pointed heels, her carry-on behind her, her phone already full of tomorrow's schedule. She was tired in the specific way that came not from work but from being away from people who had become the shape of her days. Mr. J had picked her up from the airport. Chinmay had apparently negotiated very hard to stay up and had been overruled by Chinmay at 9:30 and gone to bed under formal protest. The estate was quiet when she arrived. Low lights. The old trees dark and still outside. Chinmay was in the sitting room. No jacket. Sleeves rolled to the elbows. A book open in his lap that she was certain he had not been reading. He looked up when she walked in. He stood. He crossed the room and took her face in both hands and looked at her the way he had been looking at her for 6 months, like she was the truest thing in any room she walked into, and said quietly, I do not want to keep watching you leave. Elena held his gaze. Then ask me to stay. He reached into the pocket of his dark trousers and produced a ring. Simple. Precise. A deep oval sapphire set in dark gold. Not flashy, not performing, just beautiful in the way of things chosen with complete certainty. He held it between them. Elena Brooks, he said. Stay. Permanently. As my wife. As his mother. As everything you already are to this family, but with my name added to yours if you will have it. She looked at the ring. Then at his face. You practiced that, she said. 3 weeks, he admitted. She laughed. Then she held out her hand. He put the ring on her finger with the same deliberateness he gave everything, slowly, completely, without any doubt at all. From the hallway doorway a small sound. They both turned. Chinmay stood in his navy star pajamas, his dark hair sticking up, his small face arranged in an expression of elaborate surprise that convinced no one. I could not sleep, he said. You have been standing there the whole time, Chinmay said. Only since she came through the door. He crossed the room and wedged himself between them and took both their hands. He looked at the ring on Elena's finger for a long moment. Then he looked up at his father. I told you she would say yes. You did, Chin-hye said. I always know. He looked at Elena with those ancient certain eyes. Welcome home. Officially. Elena pulled him up into her arms and he wrapped around her immediately, and she held him there in the sitting room of the estate in her burgundy power suit still wrinkled from the London flight while Chin-hye stood beside them with his hand on her back and outside the old trees moved in the Seoul night like they had been waiting for this too. They were married 4 months later. Not a large wedding. Elena had been offered large and declined it. She had spent her career performing for rooms full of people who needed convincing. Her wedding was not a performance. 40 people. The estate garden in late afternoon light. Elena in a gown that had taken her breath away the moment she put it on. Ivory silk, structured at the bodice, flowing wide from the waist, a single long trail behind her, her shoulders bare, her natural hair crowned with small white flowers. No veil. She had never needed anything over her face. Chin-hye at the garden altar in a dark suit so precisely fitted it looked like it had been made for this exact moment. Because it had. And Chin-mei between them at the altar, because of course he was, in his charcoal black suit and mirror-polished shoes, his dark eyes moving between his father and his mother with the expression of a man who has completed a very significant project. The officiant, a quiet man named Pastor Lim who had known Chin-hye for 15 years, looked at Chin-mei standing between the couple at the altar and raised an eyebrow. Chin-hye gave him a look that said, "Do not ask." Pastor Lim did not ask. The vows were short and honest the way Chin-hye was always short and honest. He looked at Elena and said, "I will protect what is yours. I will stand beside what you build. I will choose you every Tuesday and every difficult day and every ordinary morning at the breakfast table. I chose you already. I will keep choosing you." Elena looked at him and said, "I came to Seoul for a business lunch. I found a family instead. I did not know I was looking. But I know what I found. And I am not going anywhere." Chin-mei nodded approvingly between them. Mrs. O cried in the front row. Mr. J did not cry. His jaw moved twice and he looked at the garden trees for a long moment. That was the same thing. Life after the wedding arranged itself around the shape of all three of them. Elena kept her companies. This was never in question. EMB Group continued to grow. A fifth company added 18 months after the wedding, a tech investment division that her board had been urging for 2 years, and that she launched from a glass-walled office in Seoul that looked out at the Han River. She ran her empire from Seoul now, the center of gravity shifted, the Singapore and London offices managed by deputies she trusted completely. She still traveled. Often. When Chin-hye's own business demanded him, and it demanded him frequently, the kind of business that was conducted in quiet rooms with people who never used last names, Elena and Chin-mei traveled together. They were a unit, those two. Had been since a restaurant in Seoul and a charcoal suit and a shin kick that started everything. In Singapore, Chin-mei sat in the back of her meetings in his small suit with a notebook, drawing pictures of Baduk boards and occasionally writing down words he considered important. In London, he charmed every person in her office building within 20 minutes of arrival, and left with 3 phone numbers he claimed were for networking purposes. "You are 6 years old," Elena told him on the flight back from London, in a deep burgundy silk blouse and wide-leg black trousers, her laptop open, his notebook open beside her. "Appa says age is not relevant to effectiveness," Chin-mei said without looking up from his drawing. "Your father says that about business. Business is business." He turned a page. "Also the lady at your London office said I was the most professional child she had ever met. She was being polite. She gave me her card." Elena looked at him. He showed her the card. She looked back at her laptop. "Do not call her," she said. "I will have Mr. J call her," he said agreeably. It was on a Thursday morning in the Seoul office, Elena in a sharp ivory blazer and fitted black trousers, her hair back, 3 calls already completed before 9, that Chin-mei arrived after school and sat at the small desk she had installed in the corner of her office for exactly this purpose and said, without looking up from his homework, "Have you and Appa thought any more about the brother and sister situation?" Elena did not look up from her screen. "We are working on it." Chin-mei looked up. He studied her face with those searching certain eyes. Then something shifted behind them, slow recognition, the particular intelligence of a child who has been watching adults longer than most. "Elena." His voice was careful, almost reverent. "Are you already working on it?" Elena kept her eyes on her screen. The corner of her mouth moved. Chinmay slowly put his pencil down. Mom, he said. She looked at him. His face was doing something she had never seen it do. Something that was completely unguarded and completely young, and so full of feeling that it had nowhere to go. His dark eyes were wide and bright, and for once in his small ancient certain life, he had absolutely nothing to say. He got up from his desk. He crossed the office. He climbed onto her chair beside her and leaned against her side and put his small hand over hers on the desk. Both? He asked quietly. Both, she confirmed. Chinmay sat very still for a long moment. Then he nodded once, slow, deep. The nod of a man receiving news he has been waiting for his entire life. I knew, he said softly. I always know. Elena looked down at the top of his dark hair and felt something so full in her chest that it had no name in any language she spoke. Outside the Seoul office windows, the Han River moved slowly and gold in the afternoon light. She put her arm around him and he leaned into her completely, and they sat together in the ivory blazer and the small school uniform while Seoul hummed its vast and different song outside. And inside this office, the most important thing in the world was happening without any noise at all. Seo Ji-yeon came on a Wednesday. Nobody had arranged it. Nobody had announced it. She simply appeared at the ENB Seoul office reception at 2 in the afternoon in a pale gray suit. Not the cream Chanel this time, something quieter, something that had left its chin at home, and asked if she could see Mrs. Park. The receptionist called up. Elena was in a structured deep olive green blazer and tailored ivory trousers, her pregnancy just beginning to show at 5 months, her dark brown eyes steady when she took the call. She looked at Chinmay across the office. He was at his corner desk doing homework, his school uniform neat, his pencil moving. Send her up, Elena said. Chinmay looked up. Seo Ji-yeon, Elena said simply. He put his pencil down. He straightened his collar. His face arranged itself into the expression she had first seen in Arya restaurant. Composed, certain, ancient. The fierce little boy in the charcoal suit, grown 1 year older and not 1 degree softer. I will stay, he said. It was not a question. I know, Elena said. Seo Ji-yeon walked into the office and stopped. She had clearly not expected the boy to be there. Her eyes moved from Elena to Chinmay and something moved across her face. Not the cold calculating look from the restaurant, but something smaller and less certain. She was a woman who had spent 3 months understanding the full weight of what she had done, and who she had done it to. It showed. She looked different without the arrogance. Smaller. More human. Elena did not stand. She sat behind her desk in her olive green blazer, her dark brown eyes steady, her hands folded over her rounded middle, and waited. Seo Ji-yeon clasped her hands in front of her. Mrs. Park, she said. Her voice was careful, stripped of its previous weaponry. Miss Brooks Park, Elena said pleasantly. I kept both. Seo Ji-yeon absorbed that. Miss Brooks Park. She looked at Chinmay, then back at Elena. She exhaled slowly. I came because I owe you both something I should have offered a long time ago. The office was very quiet. I was wrong, she said. It came out without decoration, without the cushioning of excuses. What I said to you in that restaurant was cruel, and it was wrong, and it was the action of a woman who used cruelty as a currency she had never been asked to account for. She paused. I have been asked to account for it. Elena said nothing. She let the silence work. Seo Ji-yeon turned to Chinmay. He looked at her with those dark eyes, not hostile, not warm, simply present. Fully, completely present the way only certain people know how to be. I owe you a particular apology, Seo Ji-yeon said to him. You were a child in that restaurant and you saw something that every adult in that room chose not to see. And then you acted on it. With your whole self. Something shifted in her voice. I have a son. He is 4. I have thought about what I would want him to do if he saw what you saw. She pressed her lips together briefly. I would want him to do exactly what you did. Chinmay studied her face for a long moment. Did you learn something? He asked. The directness of it made Seo Ji-yeon blink. Yes, she said quietly. Good. He nodded once. Then it was useful. He picked his pencil back up and returned to his homework. Seo Ji-yeon looked at Elena. Elena looked back at her with dark brown eyes that were not warm but were not closed. Thank you for coming, Elena said. It took something to walk through that door. Seo Ji-yeon nodded. She looked once more at Chinmay's bent head, his pencil moving across his page, entirely finished with the matter. Then she walked out. The office door closed. Chinmay did not look up. She meant it, he said. I know, Elena said. Good. He turned a page. Now she can move on. Elena looked at her son, 6 years old, 5 months away from becoming a big brother, sitting in his school uniform in the corner of her sole office doing his homework like the world made complete sense to him. Did she realize? It always had. He was the only one of them who had never been confused about any of it. Chinmay took the news of the apology over dinner that evening. He sat with it quietly the way he sat with all information, processing, filing, deciding what it meant. She came herself, he said. She came herself, Elena confirmed. He nodded once. His version of closing a chapter. He reached across the dinner table and covered Elena's hand with his. Chinmay watched this and returned to his food with satisfaction. The months that followed were the fullest Elena had ever lived. She was 6 months pregnant in Singapore, closing a partnership deal in a beautifully cut deep yellow maternity dress and pointed flats, her hair down, her dark brown eyes sharp and focused across the conference table, while the other side scrambled to keep up with a woman who was simultaneously growing 2 human beings and restructuring a regional division, and finding both tasks completely manageable. Chinmay sat in the corner with his notebook. On the flight home he fell asleep against her shoulder, his small hand resting on her rounded middle. And somewhere over the Pacific one of the babies kicked and Chinmay stirred in his sleep and smiled without waking, and Elena sat in the dim cabin light of their private flight looking at her son sleeping against her, and felt something so enormous and quiet it was almost like sound. She sent Chinmay a message. Your son just felt them kick in his sleep and smiled. I thought you should know. 3 minutes passed. I know. He told me this morning he already spoke to them. He said they know his voice. Elena looked at the message for a long time. Then she looked at Chinmay sleeping. Then she looked out the plane window at the dark sky and the stars scattered across it like something deliberate, and she thought, yes, this is exactly what yes was for. They were home in Seoul when it happened. It was a Saturday, Chinmay's 7th birthday. The estate garden had been decorated not lavishly but warmly, the way Elena and Chinmay did everything, with intention and without performance. Lanterns strung between the old trees. A long table set for the 40 people who mattered. Mrs. O had been cooking since Thursday. Mr. J had organized everything with the quiet efficiency of a man who considered this the most important operation of the year. Chinmay had been awake since 5. He was in his charcoal black suit, the latest version, fitted perfectly to the 6-year-old he had been 3 months ago and slightly tight across the shoulders now because he had grown, again in the particular way he did everything, completely and without announcing it. He stood at Elena's bedroom door at 5:15 and knocked precisely 3 times. Chinmay opened the door. It is my birthday, Chinmay said. We know, Chinmay said. Is today the day? Chinmay looked back into the room. Elena was already awake, sitting up in bed in a soft ivory sleep dress, her rounded middle enormous now, her dark brown eyes bright and slightly breathless. Come in, she said. Chinmay came in and climbed carefully onto the bed beside her and put his hand on her middle the way he had been doing for 4 months, gently, deliberately, his small palm flat. Today, he told the twins with complete authority. It would be very good if you came today. It is my birthday and I have been waiting a long time and I am ready. Elena laughed, then stopped laughing. Chinmay looked at her. Chinmay, she said very carefully. He was already moving. Seoul National University Hospital was not where Chinmay had planned to spend his birthday. He had been promised cake and lanterns and the 40 people who mattered. Instead he sat in a hospital waiting room in his slightly too tight charcoal suit and mirror-polished shoes with Mr. J beside him, his small hands folded in his lap, his dark eyes on the door. He was completely calm. Mr. J was less calm. He had been Mr. J for 11 years and had navigated things that would have unmade most men. He was undone by a hospital waiting room. She will be fine, Chinmay told him. I know, Mr. J said. And Appa is with her. I know. And they are coming today because I asked them to. Mr. J looked at the boy. You believe that? Chinmay looked back at him with those ancient certain dark eyes. I know that, he said simply. Mrs. O arrived at 9 with birthday cake in a box because she had decided the birthday was happening regardless of the location, and nobody argued with Mrs. O. At 11:47 in the morning Chinmay came through the door. He was still in his clothes from the morning, his suit jacket gone, His sleeves rolled to the elbows, his dark hair slightly disheveled for the first time in Chinmay's entire memory. His angular face was completely open, not the controlled, composed face of the most feared man in Seoul, but the face of a man who has just witnessed something that has rearranged every priority he has ever had. His dark eyes found Chinmay immediately. Chinmay stood up. "Both?" he asked. Chinhae crossed the waiting room and crouched down to his son's level, something he did not do often. Chinmay was a boy who preferred to be taken seriously at standing height, but he did it now. He took his son's face in both hands. "Both?" he said. "A boy and a girl. They are healthy. Your mother is perfect." Chinmay's face did the thing it had done in Elena's office when she confirmed the pregnancy, that completely unguarded, completely young, completely full expression that had nowhere to go. His dark eyes went bright. "I knew," he whispered. "You always know," Chinhae said. Chinmay hugged his father. Not the quick tight hug of a child in passing, but a full deliberate hug, both arms around his father's neck, his face pressed there, holding on. Chinhae held him with both arms and closed his eyes briefly. Mrs. O opened the cake box. Mr. J looked at the ceiling for a long moment. Elena was sitting up when they brought Chinmay in. She wore the hospital gown with the dignity she wore everything. Back straight, dark brown eyes warm and slightly exhausted and completely full. In the crook of each arm a small wrapped bundle. Two faces so new they had not yet decided what they looked like. Chinmay walked to her bedside slowly. He looked at his mother, then at the bundle on the left, then at the bundle on the right. "The boy," Elena said gently, tilting her left arm slightly. "And the girl." Chinmay looked at them for a long time without speaking. His small jaw worked slightly. His dark eyes moved between the two small faces. "They are very small," he said finally. "You were small too," Elena said. "I was never this small." He reached out one careful finger and touched the girl's hand. Her tiny fingers curled around it immediately. Instinctive, complete, certain. Chinmay's breath caught. He looked up at Elena with eyes that were doing something he would never in his life admit to. And she looked back at him with eyes that were doing the same thing, and between them the girl held his finger like she had been waiting for exactly this. "She knows me," he said quietly. "She does," Elena said. Chinhae stood at the foot of the bed watching his family. All of it. The whole complete impossible thing that had started with a chair scraping across a marble floor in Aria restaurant and a 5-year-old boy in a charcoal suit who decided to stand up. He stood very still and looked at all of them and did not try to compose his face at all. He let it be what it was. Full. Completely, entirely full. "Happy birthday, Chinmay," Elena said softly. He looked at her. Then at his father. Then at the two small faces in her arms. Then back at her. "This is the best birthday present," he said. "But next year I still want cake first." Elena laughed. Chinhae made a sound that was absolutely a laugh and would be denied if questioned. Mrs. O, who had somehow materialized in the doorway with a cake box, said something in Korean that made Mr. J turn to face the wall entirely. In the months that followed, the Park family moved through Seoul and through the world the way families who know exactly what they are move, with weight, with warmth, with the particular confidence of people who have chosen each other on purpose. Elena ran her companies. 5 of them now, the Seoul Tech division growing faster than her most optimistic projection. Her E&B name on buildings in 4 cities across 3 continents. She traveled with Chinmay when Chinhae's other business demanded him elsewhere. In those seasons it was still the 2 of them. The tall curvy woman in her corporate blazers and elegant dresses, and the serious boy who had become a serious 8-year-old, and then a serious 9-year-old, and showed no signs of becoming anything other than completely himself. He was extraordinary at 10. Elena told him so on a flight from Singapore in a deep navy silk blouse, her laptop open, his notebook open, the world arranged below them in clouds and ocean light. "I know," he said simply. "That was not a compliment," she said. "That was a fact." "I know," he said again, and looked up at her with those dark eyes that had seen her across a restaurant 7 years ago and decided everything. "So are you." She looked at him. He looked back. Neither of them said anything else. They did not need to. The twins grew. The boy Jiho, named by Chinmay after considerable deliberation and one rejected suggestion from Chinhae that Chinmay overruled on grounds of rhythm, was loud and certain and threw his rice bowl on his first birthday and looked deeply satisfied with the result. The girl, Sua, chosen by Elena and accepted by Chinmay with a nod that indicated she had chosen correctly, was quiet and watchful and held Chinmay's finger every single time he offered it. She always had. She always would. The estate in Seoul grew full in the way Chinmay had always known it would. Breakfast was never a quiet meal. Mrs. O made extra every morning without being asked. Mr. J drove whoever needed driving wherever they needed to go with the steady loyal patience of a man who had been present for every chapter of this story, and considered it the honor of his career. Shin-hye came home every evening to a house that was full of noise and warmth and the particular beautiful chaos of a family that had been built by a 5-year-old boy with complete certainty and not one moment of doubt. He stood in the doorway sometimes, just for a moment before anyone saw him, and looked at it all. Elena at the kitchen table in whatever she had worn that day, still working, always working, Sue on her lap reaching for the laptop keys, Jiho on the floor with his toys making his announcements to the room, Chinmay at his desk doing his homework with the focused seriousness he gave everything important. For of them now, the family was not too small anymore. Chin-hye would walk in and Chinmay would look up first. He always looked up first. And the boy who had stood in a restaurant at 5 years old with his fists clenched and his jaw set and his whole heart wide open would give his father a look that said everything. I told you. I always knew. Look what we built. And that, beloved, is where we leave them. Not at a dramatic moment. Not at a crisis or a turning point. But on an ordinary evening in Seoul, in a house that is too full and too loud and exactly right. With a family that began with a chair scraping across a marble floor and a boy who refused to sit down. Chinmay was 5 when he decided. He was never wrong. He was never going to be. You just finished Daddy, I brought you someone. The complete Black Silk Stories original. 3 parts. 1 family. Built by the smallest, most certain person in Seoul. Elena Brooks came for a business lunch and stayed for a life. Chin-hye Park learned that some things are worth setting down. And Chinmay, from the very first moment, in his charcoal suit and his mirror-polished shoes, already knew how all of it would end. He always did. If this story found you, if it sat with you, if it cracked something open, if you watched this family and felt something you were not ready for, then you are exactly where you belong. Black Silk Stories. Afro-Korean stories told with the full weight they deserve. No apologies. No half measures. Just stories that hit different because they are built from something true. Like this video if this family earned it. Subscribe because the next story is already waiting. Drop a comment and tell us, when did Chinmay get you? Because he got all of us. Until the next story, beloved.